Hi, Vitality Lifers. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the single most important thing that you can do for your health. Someone, I think I have audio issues. Hold on. Let's see if it's working for everybody here. Okay, I'm going to start over. Hey, Vitality Lifers. Thanks for that. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the single most important thing that you can do for your health to help you improve your sleep, increase your energy, boost your motivation. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Heather Thatcher and I'm a registered nurse and the Vitality Lifeguard, and for years I have been helping people get out of their own way, refine their lifestyle, obliterate old habits, and achieve a life of vitality. So what is the single most important thing that you can do for your health, sleep, motivation, general well-being? Change your perspective on stress. And so if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, keep watching. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a link to sign up for a free quiz that can help you understand how much stress you're under and the potential impact of that on your health. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Before we get started, I want to ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being 100% relaxed on a beach somewhere, getting a massage, and 10 being stressed to the max, how would you rate your stress? Let me know in the comments on a scale of 1 to 10 where you would rate your current level of stress. And then once you have your number, I want you to ask yourself if stress is harmful to your health. And the truth is that stress can have a huge impact on our health. In order to explain this a little bit more fully, I have to dive in a little bit on the medical side of things. So bear with me and please feel free to ask questions. I love questions along the way, and then if something comes up, you can send me messages at the end as well. Okay, so our nervous system, it's complicated but amazing, and we have one side of our nervous system that does everything automatically for us. It handles things like breathing, keeping our heart beating, digesting our food, all those kinds of things that happen all the time without us thinking about it. And this is called our autonomic nervous system. See how like autonomic kind of sounds like automatic? So it's all those things that happen when we don't have to think about it. And it's really nice when science makes it that easy to remember. So on one side of our autonomic nervous system is our rest and digest system, which is also called the parasympathetic nervous system, for those that you want the little technical info out there. And so you may have heard of the rest and digest system before, and it does exactly what it sounds like it should do. It helps you absorb nutrients, fuel your body, relax, regenerate, and heal. And that's kind of where we want to spend at least a portion of our time during the day, so that way we can have our body sort of restore and regenerate. Plus, it's kind of nice to be relaxed. I think all of us would love that if that was the way we were all the time. On the opposite side of things is the sympathetic nervous system. And so that's also known as the fight or flight system. And so this is what kicks in when we're like just about to step off the curb and a bus drives by and we're like this close to getting smushed. And so it's that big rush of adrenaline and you're like, holy, that just happened. And so that's the fight or flight system, the sympathetic nervous system of our stress response. And so as I'm sure you can imagine, only one side of the system can be active at a time. So it's either the rest and digest side, where our heart rate is slower and our breathing is relaxed and we can actually digest our food. But when we have a bear running at us, it's not exactly a priority for our body to be digesting that cheeseburger that we had for lunch. So our body responds by increasing our heart rate and our breathing, but it also shuts down most blood flow to our digestive system, because again, it's not a super big priority. It puts blood to where it needs to be, to our heart rate, our breathing, our muscles, all those kinds of things. But the problem is that our body doesn't know the difference between being chased down by a bear and stress when we're worried about something like money or work or family dynamics or our overwhelming responsibilities. So when we're stressed, we can remain in this constant state of fight or flight, even though there's nothing that we need to fight or run from. And our body just stays in this ramped up state, ready to run for our lives. And so, as I'm sure you can imagine, this can have a huge impact on our health. And our adrenaline hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine, those are what gives you that rush, that feeling of your heart racing, and you can feel yourself breathing faster. But you kind of can only feel that initially. with chronic stress, we can sort of get used to this feeling and not really notice it anymore. So I want to challenge you right now to get comfortable in your chair, relax as best you can, and we're going to figure out the number of breaths that you take in a minute. I'm going to set a stopwatch, and I'm just going to tell you when to stop counting. But I want you to try and just breathe as normally as you can, and just keep counting until I tell you to stop. Alrighty, let me get it started here. Okay, ready, set, count. Almost there. And stop. So how many times did you breathe in that minute? Put your number of breaths in the comments below. So this is your baseline. And the normal healthy breaths per minute is between about 8 and 12. So how did you do? If you were higher, don't worry. Again, this is just a baseline. So if you were breathing faster, it's not a problem. We're just going to use that as like sort of starting point, and then we're going to try and work on it and build from there. So we're going to talk about some strategies to help fix that today as well. Our fight or flight response that plays into our maybe above normal breathing rate has other harmful effects on our body also, especially when we have that chronic stress, so the higher levels of stress that have been going on for a long time, or even like a small amount of stress that's been going on for a long time. That can all pile up and build up. So increases in the adrenaline hormones, the epinephrine and norepinephrine, those can cause some damage to our blood vessels and our arteries, especially the ones right around our heart. And so that increases our risk of heart attack and increases our risk of stroke. Cortisol is another hormone that gets talked about a lot. It's in the news a lot as the bad stress hormone. So that's another hormone that's released from the kidneys, and it's part of our sympathetic nervous system response, the fight or flight. And what it does is it increases the amount of glucose or sugar, which is our body's energy source. And so because our adrenaline is stimulating our body to work harder, our heart to beat faster, and for us to breathe faster, we got to be able to feed our body to keep that up. So that's what cortisol does. It helps to make sure that your body has the fuel that it needs to keep up with this new demand. And unfortunately, that's how cortisol can also lead to weight gain, because it tries to store any excess energy that we take in as fat. Also, our overworked cells that are being like stimulated with all of this stress, they feel like they can never get enough energy. And so they call out to the brain in the only way they know how, and they say, hey brain, we're hungry. So this can make us overeat or seek out those comfort foods in times of stress, because we're looking for the high calorie, high fat, starchy, sugary, pasta, pizza, all of those kinds of foods to really help us support our high level of energy need. And of course, since we're like driven in all this way, our body has to compensate somehow. And so our immune system actually gets suppressed a little, like cortisol kind of like shoves it down, and we're sick more often. And we just seem to like bounce from one cold to the next flu, and you just never really seem to recover. Also, our blood acid-base balance gets thrown off a little bit, and so our skin can just erupt in all kinds of acne, and we can also have a flare-up of eczema and psoriasis and all kinds of skin conditions there. And on top of everything else, we are exhausted, no matter how much we sleep and how well we seem to sleep. it just never is enough. And then often insomnia can also go along with stress too, because our minds are just like racing and we're worried about so many things. It's tough to fall asleep in the first place, but then difficult to stay asleep all night long with a super like busy brain. But I don't have to keep going on and telling you about all the potential negative effects of stress. Enough with all the doom and gloom. You guys already know this, and maybe some of you are even experiencing this firsthand right now. So what can we do about this? Sure, self-care is important, and making time to relax, super important, but let's be real here. When you get stressed and you're super busy, what are some of the first things to go? Your coping strategies? How many of you, when you get really busy and overwhelmed, stop hanging out with friends, calling family, eating well, exercising, having bubble baths, or basically all the things that we do on a regular basis to make us happy? Give me a sad face in the comments if this is you. I know that this is me for sure, or it used to be anyway, because you just feel like you don't have time for that. Everything else has to happen first, but how you usually cope with your stress and how you usually manage that just isn't a priority anymore. Very common. But there's something else even more important that you can do to protect yourself against the harmful effects of stress. It's even more important than keeping up with those coping skills when you get really busy and stressed. And that is to change your perspective. If you look at stress in this negative way, and seeing it as like all these negative effects of the adrenaline causing damage to your arteries and your increased risk of stroke and the stress hormone breakout situations and all of that, you're just sort of perpetuating that in your body. You're allowing that stress response to affect you in that way. But there is some really cool research that shows that how we see stress can actually change how it affects our body. So a study published by the University of Wisconsin in 2012 wanted to know how stress and our perception of stress could affect us. So they looked at 30,000 people over 8 years, and they asked everyone in the study to rate their current level of stress. And then they also asked them if they believed that stress is harmful to their health. And so the bad news first was that those people who reported high levels of stress in the previous year prior to the start of the study, and they saw their stress as harmful, had a 43% increased risk of dying. However, the people that reported that they had a lot of stress, but they didn't see the stress response as harmful, had no increased risk of dying at all. In fact, they actually did better than those people that said that they had a low level of stress, but saw the stress response as harmful. So it's just maybe that view of seeing your stress as helpful can keep you from having the negative effects of the sympathetic nervous system. So this makes you wonder if you could change your view a little bit. Can it make you healthier? And so Harvard asked the same question. At Harvard University, they had 50 people participate in what sounds like the most horrible experiment in my entire life. So they were subjected to different stressful situations while their physical and emotional responses were studied. So these people were divided into 3 different groups. The first were set apart, and they were taught different ways that the stress response is helpful and how it's actually like ramping you up to react and be successful. But there was another group, and they were the ignore group. And so they were just told, like, just try and distract yourself, think of something else, look above everybody that's trying to judge you, like just try and ignore all of the stressful situations happening. And then the control group were just put in a room and just talking with each other. They weren't told anything in particular. So the reappraisal group, the ignore group, and the control group all went through the same test together, and it's called the Trier Social Stress Test. And so what this is it starts off with you being handed a somewhat complex topic on a sheet of paper and kicked out onto an auditorium stage with all the bright lights shining on your face and a panel of experts sitting there just in front of you listening to your speech. And so you're already maybe a little bit nervous, you're hot because these bright lights are shining on you, but then also all of those judges are told to give you negative nonverbal feedback. So they're sitting there like, are like looking at each other and being like, oh my God, can you believe this? She doesn't know anything about what she's talking about. So you have all of this like really awful negative feedback coming at you. And if that was not enough, after you finish that 5 minutes of torture, you get kicked out into another room where there's somebody waiting to give you a math test. And so you start at 966 and count back by 7. And the evaluator here is providing you with negative feedback like, wow, you are really bad at this. Yeah, the first person was so much faster than you. Oh my gosh. No, it's fine. Just stop. No, we're done here. It's okay. We'll just use everybody else except for you. You sucked. So after everybody finished this like horrifying experience, the researchers looked at how their body responded to the stress. And this is what they found. The people that were told that the stress is positive, that it's preparing your body to meet this challenge, that it's ramping you up to support you to be successful, they were less stressed out, they were less anxious, and more confident. But more importantly, their physical response to the stress changed. So normally the blood vessels around your heart, they tighten, they get smaller and they constrict when you get hit with those adrenaline hormones. And that's to like raise your blood pressure and make sure that your heart and your muscles and all that are getting like lots of blood really quickly. But that's also what puts us at an increased risk of heart attack or stroke. But these people that were taught to see the stress response as helpful showed no signs that their blood vessels were getting smaller. And in fact, they actually stayed wide open. And we see similar responses to adrenaline in times of joy and courage. So instead of having that stress response shrink down their heart blood vessels, it actually just stayed open as if they were joyful and courageous. And so this one little physiological change in your body can be what keeps you from getting a stress-induced heart attack earlier in life, or keeps you living well and being healthy into your 80s and 90s. So let's see if we can look at the goals of stress in a more positive way. So when we experience a stressor, our body and sympathetic nervous system gets called into action. It starts to increase our blood flow. It strengthens our heart. It makes us breathe a little faster to make sure that we have more oxygen in our blood. It helps provide us with more energy to our cells to help manage this increased demand. It gives us energy for a longer period of time, and then ultimately the stress response wants to be able to come back to normal and flick us back over to the rest and digest side so we can be restored and healed. So all of the aspects of the stress response are working hard to make us feel better. So hopefully the next time your heart is pounding from stress, you can start to change your view on how stress affects you and how you see it as your body trying to help you be successful. Because when we see the stress response as helpful, we change how it physically affects our body to mimic that of courage and joy. We're proving that we can trust ourselves to handle life's challenges and know that we don't have to face them alone. So, if you want to do a quiz that's based on the Holmes and Rahe stress scale, it helps you understand the amount of stress that you're under right now and how this could be affecting your overall health, then go to www.heatherthatcher.com/live to sign up and have the stress scale sent straight to your inbox. And if you've already subscribed to another resource from my live show, don't worry, it'll arrive in your inbox shortly. This quiz offers some great insight onto where you are right now and just how important stress management should be on your radar. So again, if you'd like to take that free quiz, just sign up at www.heatherthatcher.com/live. And I'll put a link to that in the comments so that you guys can find it there. And all this week in our Facebook group, we're going to be working on different relaxation techniques to help us learn how to flick the switch between our rest and digest system and our fight or flight system so that we're staying in the rest and digest side as much as possible. So be sure to join us for that. So I went a little medically on you guys today. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to let me know in the comments below or send me a message. The button at the top of my Facebook page will send me a message directly. So yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. I love questions. Hope that you all have a wonderful day. Enjoy your week, and I will see you all again next Sunday at noon Pacific time, where we'll be talking about how to maintain motivation. Because it's easy to start off with some motivation, but it's hard to keep it after a few days or after a week or so, where it seems to wane and all of your nice, healthy plans sort of die off. So that's what we're going to be diving in next week. So make sure you mark this in your calendar and join us live next Sunday at noon Pacific. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.